Joining us now for Word Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning,
Good morning.
Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rufai. That's me. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing well. You're
Merry
definitely in the mood for Christmas.
There is that. We're very festive with the red.
Yes.
We're creeping and crawling. This is my first one, you see.
All the parties.
The first time I ever spent December in Lagos was during the pandemic. So that wasn't very dirty. But this time we're dirty.
Very dirty this December.
This one.
Oh,
Hey, let me tell you about what is happening around the world. Okay, in very serious news now. The suspect accused of shooting dead United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson has pleaded not guilty to New York State murder and terrorism charges. That is 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, who appeared in court on Monday to be arraigned on 11 state criminal counts, including murder and a crime of terrorism. That is in addition to state-level charges. He is also accused of federal stalking and of murder offenses that could lead to a death penalty sentence. Despite facing terrorism charges, Mangione has been lauded as a folk hero by some Americans who despair at the enormous healthcare costs and power of insurers to refuse to pay many people for treatments. Now, a few dozen protesters gathered outside the courtroom in sub-zero temperatures, chanting, "Eat the rich and free Luigi," while waving signs expressing support for the defendant and anger at healthcare companies. Now, inside the courtroom, Mangione's lawyers had highlighted some legal concerns. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
I'm very concerned about my client's right to a fair trial in this case. He's being prejudiced by some statements that are being made by government officials. Like every other defendant, he is entitled to a presumption of innocence. But unfortunately, the way this has been handled so far, his rights are being violated. And as you know, Your Honor, there's a wealth of case law guaranteeing his right to a fair trial. But none of the safeguards have been put in place yet here. In fact, it's just the opposite of what's been happening. He's a young man, and he is being treated like a human ping pong ball between two warring jurisdictions here. These federal and state prosecutors are coordinating with one another, but at the expense of him. They have conflicting theories in their indictments, and they are literally treating him like he is like some sort of political fodder, like some sort of spectacle.
With the hypervisibility of this case, there's been a lot of back and forth. So just to remind you that prosecutors are attempting to argue that Mr. Mangione shot Mr. Thompson in central Manhattan in broad daylight before going on the run. Authorities later arrested him at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Moving on, yet still staying in the United States, the House Ethics Committee report into Matt Gaetz has found substantial evidence that on at least 20 occasions, he paid tens of thousands of dollars for sex with women, including a 17-year-old girl, and used illicit drugs while in office. The bombshell documents also say the former Florida congressman, who was at one point Donald Trump's nominee to lead the U.S. Justice Department, violated multiple state laws, including the state statutory rape law, as the GOP-led panel chose to take the rare step of releasing a report about a former member who resigned from Congress. Now, Gaetz, it is very important to note, denies any wrongdoing and says the people investigating me hated me. Now, the Justice Department also investigated the claim involving a sexual relationship with a minor, but did not file any criminal charges against him. That being said, some could argue that the damage was already done, as Gaetz resigned from Congress back in November after Trump nominated him for Attorney General, but he, as we all know, ultimately withdrew from consideration after backlash from both Democrats and Republicans. Are we surprised that this report was released?
I'm not surprised. I knew it was going to be released because there are a lot of people that wanted this out. And I'm happy, despite the fact that they had a bipartisanship deal at some point. But the sanctity of the country, and you see, that's one thing about America. The strength of the institution, despite the hogwash that goes on, will definitely come through. And for me, it's even more sad now, thinking of the fact that another person just like Gaetz might finally be confirmed as Secretary of Defense. That's Pete Hegseth. Because most of the things he did, too, were pretty much like this, sleeping with all sorts of people, all sorts of Malays in all of that regard, people that had opportunity and they had a lot of moral turpitude with them also. And it's sad. So this speaks volumes about Trump's peak. And it shows most of them have been problematic. So the question is, does background check exist in Trump's dictionary? No. Except you are a rabid supporter. I mean, up to the point of illogicality. If you can support him very strongly, then he will constantly push you. Trump wanted to sail this through, but Gaetz knew that there was no way this was going to be able to sail, that the Democrats were even going to have him for lunch.
One or the other, yes.
So he knew it was going to be a very big fight against him. That's why he quickly stepped back. So he knew what he had done.
Yeah.
He knew how very dirty he was. But it speaks volumes. So this is the so-called man saying, we are changing Washington. Trump, I'm talking up to. Yeah. We are draining the swamp with people with all sorts of dirty, swampy character. You are putting in the swamp. So the swamp is dirty with Trump as leader. As regards Mangione, yes, his lawyer might say things like, they are trying to play him as a cannon fodder of some sort and everything. But no. Mangione actually committed a crime.
He's accused of committing a crime.
He's not been committed yet. He doesn't have been proven guilty. But he's accused of committing a crime, a very contentious crime at that. A crime that had pit people against 2/10. Do you know that there are even some indications that when they finally get a jury might favor Mangione? That's another point because of the public sympathy he's getting. And I want to just inquire into the mind of that people that are sympathizing with him publicly. One, because he's cute. Two, because he has done something that they feel, the healthcare companies are doing us over. So is that the best way to go and kill an healthcare exam? What about the family of the person? So everybody we don't agree now, we should go ahead and kill them?
I hope not. Usually people have this type of attitude when there's a victimless crime.
Yeah.
But clearly this is not the case here because there is a man who has been killed.
There's a man who has been killed. And also, he premeditated, he looked at the notes that were found on him. His step-by-step methodology on how to kill, But also, there's a case of the contention because the federal and the states all charging him at the same time. And I get the point when his lawyer said he will be in a big quandary. Both of them are dragging the federal and the state and all the show-off at the start of it that even the mayor was there at his back when they were bringing him in and all of that. No, that's a circle. But at this point, we should focus on the family of those that are killed and let the trial start. Let's see how it pans out, But it's a very sad one for America.
Prosecutors are quite confident that they'll be able to get a conviction, saying that there is overwhelming evidence that in cases like this, you don't often get thousands of hours of footage to convict a man. But of course, he's still alleged to be the killer, but he's pleaded not guilty. His lawyer, like you played there, I think quite interesting to say that they are making him now presenting her client as a victim and saying that he might not get fair trial. But I think what's even more curious, like you both have said, is the fact that he has supporters who even have the audacity to show their faces in front of the courthouse with placards to show solidarity with him and support. Big question there. So should everyone who's offended by someone else take a gun and kill? Because again, there are certain trials that shape history and shape a nation in terms of way forward. Absolutely. This might just be that kind of trial because the outcome would see whether America supports killings based on feelings of injustice.
Agreed.
Or would serve justice and say that irrespective of how you're feeling, every human life is sacrosanct. Beyond that, like you said, federal and state charges, if he's convicted on federal charges, he's liable to be, he can be, to get the death penalty. Yes. If it's only on the state charges, he would get life imprisonment without the option of bail. So not very good prospects for him either ways. If he's found guilty eventually, we're definitely going to be watching. It's going to be a trial that a lot of people are going to be interested in. Now, going to the US very quickly, we're still in the US very quickly. Matt Gaetz, I watched yesterday the different perspectives about his this report that has been released. He has come out to say that it's a political witch hunt and that he's not the one as many politicians are want to say when they have such allegations before them. But in his case as well, they said that the evidence is overwhelming. So it will now be up to the House Ethics Committee to prove and then find him guilty and whatever the options are. The question for a lot of people was that would this reflect poorly on Trump? And to be fair, some people say that it might not because Trump is not your conventional politician. If we're your conventional politician, yes, it might affect their image, but he's had his own personal convictions himself. Correct. So the fact that he's not, people see his popularity has still soared, despite that means that it might not have a lot of effect on him on that. Katie Mills in the United States of America, a shooter was in the mall. This was surprising for me because I was there just a few weeks back, and I'm like, this hits very close home. So please stay safe out there in the United. Thankfully, nobody died, but Katie Mills is in Texas, and a lot of there was a shooter in the mall. Nobody died, but it was ridiculous. What's happening in the U.S. with gun control? Really sad.
Thank you.
Okay, the Luigi Mangione case. No serious lawyer would put your client before the court, and you ask your client to plead guilty, except you are Bobrisky's lawyer. So only Bobrisky's lawyer.
Plea deals are such a thing.
So Miss Agni Frilo, that's her name, saying that my client is innocent, not guilty. She knows the game that she's playing. In other words, she's saying that she doesn't even believe that, one, there will be fair hearing on the basis of what government officials have been saying.
Yes. That is,
our client has been convicted even before the trial. Secondly, she's saying that there's a conflict of jurisdictions, that the client is being treated as a human ping pong between state laws and federal laws. Now, at state law level, in the state of New York, 11 counts, including murder by terrorism. On that on those 11 counts, he faces the risk of life sentence without parole.
Yes.
The federal count, which includes murder, simpliciter, he faces the death penalty. So on the whole, I do not see how he's going to escape one way or the other, because this is already profiled by the prosecutors as premeditated, deliberate murder. As for the young ladies that showed up in court in New York yesterday, who were lionizing Mayorkas, that's the name of the Homeland Security Secretary, says that this is embarrassing that people will call a murderer a hero.
And accused.
They say he's helping them to fight healthcare delivery in the United States. I don't think that will be an issue for the jury. The law will follow its courts.
Yes.
And I think that Mr. Mangione would have his day in court, and he will get the judgment that he deserves. Now, as for Matt Gaetz, a month ago, decided to withdraw from consideration as Attorney General because it was clear to him that he was not going to get the support of the Senate. And it was clear to him that the Congressional Ethics Committee was investigating him with regard to issues of prostitution, involvement in drug, sex trafficking. In 2017, when he was 35, he was said to have paid a young lady of 17 years old $400, which was payment for sex. He was also said to have paid a total of 12 women between 2017 and 2020, a total of about $90,000, involving sex and, and drug. Now, on the basis of all of that, the Congressional Ethics Committee, in its 42-page report, now said that this man has violated rules of conduct in the House of Representatives. Now he says, he has already resigned. He's a private citizen. No. He became a member of the House of Representatives in 2016. Yes. So the investigation covers the period within which he's in the House. But he has the support of his wife. He says that he's not guilty. He says he has not appeared, even if he was subpoenaed. But his wife is supporting him.
Exactly.
Her name is Ginger. And then finally, he's already looking to the future. The gentleman is going to become an anchor. He will become your colleague on OAN. The station is called, it's called OAN Network. He's going to be a conservative talking head on television. And he's already posting videos. So he's going to be your colleague very soon.
And yours too, I think. Might be coming next to you. Let us move on to the newspapers. We start with This Day this morning. This Day highlights the 8 key takeaways from the president's first presidential media chat, which, as we've already said, was coordinated and moderated by our very own Dr. Ruben Abati. Those takeaways include the fact that Tinubu does not believe in price controls. He has no regrets removing the subsidy, which many Nigerian papers have also used as their headlines today. Despite Nigeria's staggering debt profile, Tinubu says that borrowing is not a crime. Tax reforms are here to stay, though. He is open to negotiations on VAT. The president also says he's confident in Nigeria's security structure. He insisted reforms are there to help and not hurt Nigerians, and that he has met financial obligations without relying on NNPCL funds. In addition to that, he says that he blames the latest spate, as you already discussed, of stampedes on grave errors by organisers. Now, this week's edition of The Advocate, which can be found within This Day's Lawyer, is titled Democracy, Trust and Mistrust. The article pays special attention to the controversial dismissal of those 18 local government chairmen in Edo State by Governor Monday Okpebholo. Moving on to the New Telegraph, it also leads with the lines coming from that presidential media chat with President Tinubu, saying that in addition to having no regrets over the removal of the fuel subsidy, when asked about cutting the cost of governance during this time of economic hardship, Tinubu has insisted that he will not reduce the size of his cabinet, which includes over 40 ministers and several other advisors and special assistants. Both the Daily Trust and the Punch hone in on that fuel scarcity portion of what the president had to say. Staying with the Punch, the Nigerian Labour Congress and civil society organizations have called for a further reduction in the pump price of petrol, stressing that the recent drop in price to 935 naira per litre is not satisfactory. The Daily Sun this morning focuses on the alumni of the University of Abuja and students there rejecting the federal government's decision to rename the university after former head of state. Yes, the General Yakubu Gowon. They're calling it a step in the wrong direction. And if we move now to papers from the continent, let's take a look at Ghana's Daily Graphic, and it has Christian leaders urging Ghanaians to follow the example of the peaceful elections which took place earlier this month and peacefully unite to rebuild the country. Kenya's Daily Nation leads with the infamous roads in Nairobi. A 6-car crash has killed 7 people, living up, unfortunately, to its grim reputation this festive period, exposing the gaps in safety and infrastructural development in the Kenyan capital. And to our UK papers, let's take a look at the Daily Telegraph. The Royal Mail has been accused of faking deliveries. Managers have been accused of telling staff to lie about the number of orders delivered in order to hit targets and receive bonuses. Then finally, the Daily Mail, which looks ahead to the King's speech due to be broadcast on Christmas Day. It is expected to be delivered at an ex-hospital chapel, a nod to the theme, which is inspired by how the UK rallied together after those Southport murders and the riots earlier this year. Those are your papers on Christmas Eve, my friends.
Oh, yeah. So the papers on Christmas Eve, I mean, it is pretty obvious now that we know that the Royal Mail lies, that they delivered a lot. Because, you know, the Royal Mail used to be the hallmark of British effectiveness and efficiency. I just hope my very dear friend Kemi Badenoch also sees this, that the Royal Mail has been doing a lot of telling a lot of porcupines.
Let's see what she says.
So let's see what she says. But I'm sure all of this is coming out in the light of the fact that a Czech billionaire is finally going to snap up the Royal Mail. So let's see how he's been able to turn that company around into a very effective company. I mean, it could be pretty much very effective, and it has potential for a lot more. It can be a big bohemian. As regards the president, I think I'd given my take on his chat and all the things he had said and all of that. But, you know, there were also so many things, you know, that I thought that when you stab into it and you take a look at it properly, there were so many things, you know, that he left unsaid. Number one will be, you know, the case of even this scarcity of food as we speak. And also the fact that he was trying to justify that his policies were working by saying the price of petrol is going down. Mr. President, please, the price is not going down. Dangote decided to do a bonanza. And the bonanza was for MRS. NNPC too said they were joining in the bonanza.
Yes.
Because see, as I yesterday, I see buffet for 1,070 naira.
Yeah.
So MRS was filling a lot of people yesterday. So it's Dangote's bonanza. And after Christmas, please, Don't be delusional to think that this is going to continue.
Yes.
All right, okay, so let me go to the Punch newspaper.
Sure.
Organized Labour responding to the reduction in fuel prices, which I have to say is not everywhere. I still bought my fuel at over 1,000 naira per litre a few days back. But I wanted to talk about organized labour. It feels like they've just really, calmed down, talking, especially in light of what's happening across the country. I wish they would also face more labour issues and negotiate with the government. There are issues of the retrenchment in CBN. Can they have conversations around that? There are issues around, I think it was Business Day also that did a report on the banking structure and contract staffs and how they take advantage of Nigerian workers through that.
Yes.
I'd like them to discuss that or put that on
Get
the
active,
table as well. Get
essentially.
active and really represent, the workers in Nigeria. I know this is part of their key, ensure that all workers have a fair deal in terms of economic realities.
Yes.
But there are also a lot of things that they can do beyond just, cost of living crisis. Let them protect, let them, advocate for the workers themselves and, welfare of workers.
They need to
I
do.
think that's really
Thank
important.
Okay, just to go to the UK very quickly, the King Charles III, traditionally will deliver his Christmas message tomorrow. What is important about this speech is that for the fourth time in 92 years, he will be delivering this message at a themed location. In this particular case, it will be at the Fitzroy Chapel of a demolished Middlesex hospital, where his late wife, Princess Diana, had set up or inaugurated a ward for AIDS, for AIDS treatment.
Yes.
So that's what is special about this, and he's going to be talking about togetherness. He's going to be talking about healing. He's going to be talking against the background of the killings in the course of the year, the violence and all of that. And particularly, you'll be using the opportunity to reflect on what appears to be a difficult year for the, royal family.
Yeah.
2 cancer diagnoses, his own experience with cancer, and also that of Kate, the son's wife. So this will be the major highlight. The other major highlight in the UK is the report from the National Bureau of Statistics about the economy. Zero growth, 0.1 contraction, GDP growth in the quarter ending, the year. That's the big thing. And Reeves, the Chancellor, is being told that, look, you need a Christmas miracle for you to be able to rescue this economy.
Yes.
Because, two moments of a contraction will be a recession. Now, the United Kingdom is technically
in a recession.
GDP growth contracting, not a recession
Not yet.
That will take
two consecutive
two
quarters.
moments.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure. Merry
Thank
Christmas,
you very
my
much.
friends.